it could sit there for a very long time. So California and the House of Representatives are saying, let's get this done. Let's get this decided. Let's get it decided this term.
Well, given that procedural posture, if the Supreme Court were to take this case, that's a big if, obviously, the overall constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act would not be before the court, would it?
Yes, certainly the constitutionality of the individual mandate would be before the court, but also the Fifth Circuit's ruling on severability, holding that they could not determine whether the rest of the statute was severable or not, and they had to send it back to the district court to decide. Severability is a legal question. They could have decided it, they should have decided it, and the Supreme Court didn't decide it.
So, Professor, the rules usually allow a responding party a month to file a response to an appeal. But yesterday, the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration and the states challenging Obamacare to respond by Friday, this Friday, to the appeal filed by the Democratic AGs. Does that give us any indication that the justices are looking to take it or are considering it seriously, or is it just pro forma?
Well, that's not quite right. What they ordered was that they respond by Friday to the separate motion by the California group and the House of Representatives that the case be given an expedited hearing. And in particular, I would imagine what they're considering is whether the petition for certiorari should be expedited. Normally, this is a fairly leisurely process. The petition, the respondents, in this case, the Texas group, and probably the Department of Justice, would have 30 days to respond and to the petition for certiorari, and then the petitioner would have 14 days to respond, and then sometime thereafter the Supreme Court would consider the petition and decide whether to hear it or not. And so California and the House are asking that the whole process be sped up so that the case, the certiorari petition, can be decided either in late January or in February, and the case can be before the court before it closes its doors to oral arguments on April 29th, or that possibly the court could hold a special argument session in May to hear the arguments on the case.
Well, so what's the big, if I ask, what is the big urgency here? Obamacare has been under attack since it was enacted, and the Obamacare, people have been enrolling. It hasn't stopped enrollment. Why the urgency? Do you see an urgency?
Well, that's the question, of course, that the court has to decide. But I think there's a very good argument that there's an urgency. It has been under attack continuously. It's been upheld twice. But this challenge was a challenge before the district court, before a judge who, frankly, is pretty unorthodox and who a whole range of conservatives and progressives said that there was no legal case that he couldn't rule against the Affordable Care Act. He did. He threw out the whole thing. And then the case went to the Fifth Circuit, and, you know, a lot of people thought, well, this is a ridiculous case. The Fifth Circuit will throw it out. But they didn't. They upheld it. And so I think it's getting more and more serious. And, of course, lots of people depend on the Affordable Care Act in lots of ways. Not just insurers, also providers who would see a huge jump in their uncompensated care if 20 million people lost insurance. And frankly, a lot of private individuals. If you're 60 years old and you're thinking of maybe retiring early and starting a new business, you're going to be stuck in that job with health insurance if the Affordable Care Act goes away and you can't get individual health insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. So this is an important question to a lot of people, and we need to get it decided now, not just sent back down again.
And particularly, June, an important question in an election year, I would say.
Absolutely.
There's some politics in here, too.
This case would then be decided very close to that.
Exactly. Thanks so much to my colleague, June Grasso, and to Professor Timothy Jost of the Washington Lee Law School. Iran's connections with terrorist organizations are front and center after the U.S. attack that killed General Soleimani last week. We talk with former Treasury terrorist official Hagar Shamali. That is coming up next on Balance of Power. We are on Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials. So taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
In-depth analysis.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P lower, NASDAQ is advancing. S&P on track for its second drop in 3 sessions. Investors do remain cautious after Iran threatened a military response to a U.S. airstrike that killed a top general 4 days ago. S&P down 7 now, down 0.2%. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 112 points. That's a drop of 0.4%. NASDAQ advancing 12 points, up by 0.1%. Gold up 0.5% right now. An ounce of gold, $15.73. The 10-year down 2/30 seconds, yield 1.81%. A retreat for oil, West Texas Intermediate down 0.9%, $62.69 a barrel, and Brent crude down 1%, $68.21. I'm Charlie Pellet. Balance of Power continues. Once again, here's your host, David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Live from the Interactive Broker Studio, this is Balance of Power. I am David Weston. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo earlier today emphasized Iran's ongoing terrorist activities in the region, even making fun of the suggestion that General Soleimani may have been on a diplomatic mission when he was killed in Iraq.
Is there any history that would indicate that it was remotely possible that this kind gentleman, this diplomat of great order, Qasem Soleimani, had traveled to Baghdad for the idea of conducting a peace mission?
We welcome now Hagar Shamali, Greenwich Media Strategy CEO. Ms. Shamali served as the Treasury Department spokesperson for terrorism and financial intelligence under President Obama. So, Shamali, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us. So let's start with what Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just said. Doesn't he have a point, Hagar, that in fact that nobody can really think this guy was on a diplomatic mission, can they?
Right. Well, thanks for having me, Dave. He is right. You know, it was funny to see him be so sarcastic, since he isn't normally like that. But at the end of the day, Qasem Soleimani was an incredibly, just a horrible individual. I mean, he was a designated terrorist here in the United States, had been for over a decade. I worked at the Treasury Department in counter-terrorist financing starting in 2006. And from that point onward, up until 2016, worked in some form of U.S. foreign policy toward the Middle East. And Qasem Soleimani was behind every major and minor Iranian terror plot, including, by the way, plots that touched the United States. And he was also behind the broader Iranian foreign policy and strategy to fund and arm proxies and militias and terrorist groups across the region. That was all his doing. For my entire government career, everything that touched Iran, at the end of the day, it originated with Qasem Soleimani. And so I think his point, Secretary Pompeo's point, that it was very unlikely that he was in Baghdad for pure diplomatic talks, I think that's right.
So, Hagar, you make a very important point. Throughout your entire career in the government, this has been the case. So what changed? I mean, certainly, Qasem Soleimani didn't change. He'd been doing this for some time. Was it a matter of the United States hadn't had the opportunity to take him out before? Or was it that there's something new he was doing that we don't know about as of right now that made it necessary? Or is it just a general change in policy from this administration?
Right. Well, when I heard that the administration had this intelligence that indicated he was planning a major attack against U.S. diplomats and American service members, it didn't surprise me. We've been in heightened tensions for over a year, obviously, but over the last 10 days, these tensions have been particularly dangerous and have taken the form of these tit-for-tat type of attacks. And so it didn't surprise me that Qasem Soleimani would be planning something. But you have a point where it wasn't surprising to me because he was always behind these types of plots. Yeah. Now, that being said, for the time period that I was in government, which was the second half of the Bush administration and the entire term of the Obama administration, at least I never saw this type of option come up and be weighed. And yesterday, former National Security Advisor, Ambassador Susan Rice, also said the same thing. She said the option had never really even been presented to the White House. So the cost-benefit analysis of killing him perhaps had not been done, but perhaps it had also been because analysts thought about the fact that he was, although he was a terrorist or a terrorist leader, and certainly a designated one here in the United States, he was also technically a government official of the government of Iran. And so taking any kind of action against him, although we kill terrorist leaders all the time, killing somebody like Qasem Soleimani does send a stronger message and does have broader implications because at the end of the day, you are targeting a government. So that cost-benefit analysis has to happen. I do believe that the administration came to this conclusion that this intelligence indicated some kind of major attack, and that they pursued this attack for what they believed was a preemptive measure, right? To preempt some major effort on Qasem Soleimani's part. I believe that was their logic. Whether or not that was the right move is a separate question.
We hear not only preemptive, but also perhaps deterrent. We heard General Petraeus over the weekend say this was the right move because we had Iran increasingly just go after various targets in Saudi Arabia, but also U.S. targets and things like that we have to send a message not just to Iran, but to other countries that we will respond, almost like the days of mutual assured destruction under the nuclear umbrella. Does that make sense to you? Can we deter a regime such as that of the Supreme Leader, Mr. Khamenei?
Right. It's a great question. It is very clear to me that is what they're trying to do, not just with the assassination of Soleimani, but certainly with the escalated rhetoric you're seeing from President Trump lately, where he has threatened to target hit other Iranian targets and to sanction Iraq, which by the way would be a gross misuse of that tool. But the point is, the message that they're trying to convey to the Iranians is that the United States is not afraid to use all the tools in its toolbox, and that for the retaliation that it will inevitably pursue, that it should take that into its calculation, right? That not only is President Trump not afraid to use force, but he's quite unpredictable in these types of responses. And so that for an adversary generally, and certainly an adversary in this part of the world, that is a message you want them to know. You want an adversary to be deterred and to watch out for doing something too strong. So that's what they're doing. Can they be deterred? Can the Ayatollah be deterred? Yes. I mean, that's why sanctions have been generally a successful tool deployed in Iran and elsewhere. They have had their success, right, in both deterring bad behavior and also certainly with Iran, it's what got them to the negotiating table in 2014. But to be deterred, it just depends how. For example, I'll give you an example. I don't think that Tehran will go lob a rocket at Tel Aviv. I think that they'll be deterred from doing that, given President Trump's potential response. But I don't think they're going to be deterred from potentially sending rockets at a U.S. airbase in the Gulf or pursuing a cyber attack against U.S. interests here.
Okay, this is really helpful. I really appreciate you being with us. That's Hagar Shamali. She's CEO of Greenwich Media Strategies. Really interesting discussion. And for another interesting 4 hours coming up, we have Bloomberg Business Week coming up with, here's my buddy. He's Jason Kelly, works all the time.
Settling in for the next 4 hours. It's going to be interesting. We do expect to hear from the president a little later on this afternoon. He's meeting with the Prime Minister of Greece.
Oh, yeah.
As you know. So we expect to hear more about what's going on in the Middle East in terms of that strategy. We're going to talk about Taiwan a little bit. Great story in the magazine about that. Hedge fund returns. Also, the big new mall in New Jersey, American Dream.
I've read about it. Yeah. The one that's been working on for about 3 decades now.
Yeah, indoor ski slope, the whole thing. Tom Barrack was actually one of the original developers and owners of that. It's actually doing pretty well.
No.
It is fully...
No.
It is just about fully leased.
You must be joking.
I am not.
Really?
Jordan Holman's going to be along. She's going to tell us that, signs of the retail apocalypse apparently not as apparent. Now, I don't know how much you've read about this. It's hard to get to. Like, the traffic around there is crazy.
Yeah,
There's
park
nothing
and things
good.
like that. But also, it's not all open yet, right? Didn't they open it up with just part of it open?
Yeah, it's part of it. It's going to be fully open this spring, but at least retailers there are very optimistic about what you may say. I don't know. Maybe people want to go indoor skiing.
So, indoor skiing. Mall of America, take that.
Yeah, exactly. American dream, man. It's all the rage.
We'll see you in Up the Bid. Okay, there you go. That's all coming up on Bloomberg Business Week. And it's going to be with Jason Kelly and Carol Masser, and they'll be here for 4 hours. In the meantime, I'm going to be leaving you. This is the end of Balance of Power for today, but we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Daybreak East.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run. Mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up, lift. Mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run. Mix it up. Add a boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing in January. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium,
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats.
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. I'm Carol Masser. 2020.
Is that your Barbara Walters impression?
It kind of was.
I like it.
Carol Masser along with Jason Kelly. I love what you said in the newsroom. Investors not so sure about this war or potential war and conflict over in the Middle East.
Well, it was interesting. Yesterday, there was this sense of like, nothing to see here, move along. We've seen this before. And now investors coming in today and saying, well, maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious about geopolitics.
All right, we're going to talk about that and so much more over the next few hours. First up, though, let's get to Charlie Pellet for a Bloomberg Business News Flash. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, and I thank you. And here's what's going on this Tuesday here. A little bit of red on the screen, at least for the S&P 500 index. Lower now by 5 points. That's a drop of 0.2%. Dow Jones Industrial Average also on the minus side right now, lower by 103 points. A drop there of 0.4%. But NASDAQ is advancing. NASDAQ up 15, a gain of 0.2%. S&P, by the way, on track for its second drop in 3 sessions as investors remain cautious after Iran threatened a military response to a U.S. airstrike that last week killed a top Iranian general. The 10-year down 3/32. The yield right now 1.81%. Gold retreating by 9, actually up today by 0.5%. Gold 15.73 the ounce. It's West Texas Intermediate crude oil that's down 0.8% right now, 62.73 a barrel, and Brent 68.23. It is lower by 1%. So again, recapping mixed Tuesday here. S&P 500 index down now by 5 points. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. It's a Tuesday edition, and we talked a lot last year, I think it's fair to say, about the Fed.
Yeah,
we're talking a little bit less about it so far in 2020, but a voice we always like to hear from, Alan Greenspan. Tom Keene caught up with him. We're going to play out part of that later this hour.
Right, and we get to talk about the low-rate environment and so much more. So we'll get to that. We're also going to get to the CEO of Tivity Health launching a new division. Let me say that again. It's all about wellness, and I feel like that was certainly a theme we talked about a lot last year, and it's continuing into the new year.
We're also going to catch up with the COO over at Harman, the high-end audio maker, out at CES. You know, cool new speakers, cool new sound. I'm in.
Megatrends. We're going to talk about that. And, Jason, it's not a dream. It's the American dream, and it might be actually a retail success story.
I talked about this with David Weston a few minutes ago, and you could have knocked him over with a feather. He's like, come on.
You can't even get there.
No way. It's not happening. But Jordan Holman says, yes way. It is happening, and it's almost fully leased, so she's going to be along a little bit later.
Okay, first up, it is time to set the Bloomberg Business Week agenda, and joining us is Dave Wilson, stocks editor at Bloomberg News. He's in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio right here in New York City, and also joining us is Gina Martin-Adams, Chief Equity Strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence. But Dave, let's start with you. What's the one thing folks need to know about this trade on this Tuesday?
It's interesting. If you go back to last week, you see this pattern of up days followed by down days for the S&P 500, and that's where we are today. The index was up yesterday, it's down today. Now, even though we've had records during that sequence of up and down moves, you look at where the S&P 500 is right now, it's less than a point away from where it closed the Friday after Christmas. So we're seeing movement, but we're not really seeing direction. It's almost like people are waiting for something, and we're a week away from the start of fourth quarter earnings season. We get Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo on the 14th. So that's going to be a date to watch. And in the meantime, there's certainly a lot of back and forth in the market, but just not really any direction here.
Right. Another thing to focus on amid some of these big macro concerns that have come out. Gina Martin-Adams is in the house. I heard you early this morning. You've had a long day already.
Typical day.
What's changing, if anything, in your thinking now that we've kicked off a new year?
Not a ton. I do think that when Dave was talking about the character of the market, we've entered what I would like to call a consolidation. It's a trendless market consolidating really extreme gains that occurred in the fourth quarter of last year.
To be expected?
When you get to a point where you have, we look at rate of change measures, and we looked at the 60-day rate of change above 10%, right? That's what happened in the last 60 days of 2019. Every single time over the last 5 years in which you've gotten to a point where the 60-day rate of change was above 10%, you went through at least a consolidation, if not a correction. So that was to be expected. Longer term, I think the characteristics of the market will change a little bit in the year ahead because policy is changing, right? Last year was about a really big shift from more hawkish policy to more dovish policy. Mm-hmm. This year will be sort of a mini dove market in our belief is the Fed is still effectively easing through balance sheet expansion, but that rate's not going to come down anymore. That puts the onus of price appreciation on earnings.
You don't think rates are going to come down?
No, I don't think so.
Even though we started to percolate a little bit yesterday?
I mean, I think that's related to what's happening with Iran and some concerns about the ultimately deflationary impact of higher oil prices. But I think our working thesis is that we're not going to get a lot out of the Fed this year. So that means the market will shift, right? What drives the market higher in an environment where liquidity is not the primary source of optimism? It has to be earnings.
Right.
So what are people waiting for? Yes, David hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely earnings season. We've got to get through this next earnings season. Companies most likely have to confirm that things are at least not getting worse, to confirm that the outlook will improve into the second half of this year.
What are the comparisons like, Gina, compared with last year?
Well, that's what's so interesting. Yeah. It's a very different comparison market. If you think about going into 2019, you're looking at comping to 20, 25, 30% earnings growth numbers through the course of most of 2019. This year, you're comparing to nothing. Earnings didn't grow at all in 2019. So it's a really easy comparison after the fourth quarter. I'm going to recall starting in January, we're only going to get fourth quarter earnings, and the comparison is still to double-digit earnings growth. So you've got to get through that fourth quarter, and then things probably get a lot easier for companies to satisfy expectations.
Right. Yeah, and what I can't help focusing on is the sequence that is being built into S&P 500 earnings estimates. The idea that, okay, you get earnings growth back in the first quarter, faster growth in the second, faster growth in the third, and by the time you get to the fourth quarter, you're talking about 13% plus profit growth. I mean, I just keep coming back to that because it's a lot for companies to have to deliver on. And once we get these fourth quarter results, we'll get a better sense of whether they're capable of doing that.
I got to say, I'm kind of focusing on, we've been having conversations from the Consumer Electronics Show, and it's just a reminder that, companies are out there, they're looking for the next technology that they need to kind of advance their product and so on and so forth. And it's just a reminder that companies, despite some of these big macro concerns, or whether we talk about, what the Fed's going to do or what's going to happen in Iran, they continue to make decisions. We also have a guest on from, I'm trying to think, Accenture, right? They did a deal. Like, companies are continuing
an individual from a company.
Sorry. It's a long list of guests today. But it's just a reminder that companies are making decisions and doing things, right? They're going about their business. It's not like, oh my God, we're just going to stop doing anything.
And I think this is an excellent point. We actually make this in a note that we're publishing right now, and we suggest.
I did not know that.
Look, we make this point because analyst forecasts imply you can get a double-digit gain in stock prices this year.
Right.
And the analysts look at companies themselves, and what are the companies doing? And when you aggregate all those analyst estimates, analysts are still pretty optimistic. But if you look at strategists forecasts imply the slowest pace of gains this year in more than 20 years. Strategists are not that optimistic because they're so caught up in the macro. They're so caught up in what's happening
and
economically
and
geopolitically.
Right? Like
nor analysts nor strategists always get it right.
Says the strategist.
I want to just point
Sorry, Gina.
Really quick, one shift away from pessimism today. Francois Tran at UBS, who've been looking for 3,000 on the S&P 500, tied for the lowest forecast in Bloomberg survey, moving up to 3,250. Figuring the first half won't be great, but the second half you get a rebound.
There you go. All right, Gina Martin Adams, Dave Wilson, thank you both so much. Let's do the Bloomberg Markets Bite of the Day. Carol, it's one number that tells us a lot. Today's number, €1 billion. A consortium led by Tencent Holdings seeking a €1 billion. That's about $1.1 billion US. It's a 5-year loan to help fund its $3.4 billion purchase of a stake in Universal Music Group. 5 banks, Bank of America, Bank of China, HSBC, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and Morgan Stanley are expected to provide the non-recourse financing.
I'm just going to say that's a big loan.
It's a big
That's
loan.
a big note.
Big deal. Important deal.
All right, let's get to some of the big stories when it comes to world and national news headlines. Over to Bob Moon we go in our Bloomberg 11.3 newsroom in New York.
Carol, a dramatic reversal today by the Justice Department, which now argues that former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn should serve up to 6 months behind bars. Federal prosecutors had said Flynn was entitled to avoid prison time because of extensive cooperation. That was before Flynn's new legal team started accusing prosecutors of withholding information that they said was favorable to their client. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement begins its path through the Senate with approval from the Finance Committee. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
From farmers to auto workers, senators said their constituents would benefit from the deal. Republican James Lankford.
We're actually getting a trade agreement done for a country negotiating with us. We're sending a message worldwide that we're open to trade again.
Democrat Ron Wyden cited a significant improvement.
All along, what this country did on enforcement didn't have any teeth.
and it was too slow to protect American jobs from trade cheats.
Chairman Chuck Grassley.
This is a big bipartisan vote. 25 ayes, 3 nays. The bill is reported.
But more committees will have their say, with a Senate vote subject to delay by impeachment. At the White House, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
That U.S. airstrike that killed Iran's top military general was based on what Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calls multiple pieces of information. Pompeo stepped up his rhetoric today.
Iran has refused to join the regional and international consensus for peace and is, in fact, today, actively working to undermine the peace process by continuing its long global efforts to support militant groups there.
Pompeo specifically blamed Iran for undermining peace efforts in Afghanistan. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across...
Welcome to Nuffield Health Battersea, a gym built around you. You get regular health MOTs to create a plan that works for you, with physios and personal trainers on site. You'll find a wide range of equipment and classes, and our expert team will support you to get the most out of your health, fitness, and your membership. Join today to get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health. Specialists in you. 12-month commitments only. Facilities stated are in most gyms. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Mix it up, skip, run, give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it up, add a boxing class, skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing in January. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run, mix it.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not doing a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 64 million. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £64 million.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got to move lower right now for both the Dow and the S&P 500 index. NASDAQ on the plus side. Stocks are falling as investors remain wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. The dollar advanced. Oil continues its retreat from multi-month highs. West Texas Intermediate crude lower now by 0.9%. Right now, WTI trading at $62.66 a barrel. Brent crude down 1.1%, $68.16. The Dow, the S&P, and now NASDAQ just turning lower. NASDAQ down by 1 point, little change there. S&P down 10, a drop there of 0.3%. The Dow is down 120 points, a drop of 0.4%. 10-year down 430 seconds. The yield 1.82%. Gold up 0.3, $15.70 the ounce. And got to mention Bitcoin today climbing to the highest since November after reaching the $8,000 price level. Right now looking at Bitcoin, $8,081, a gain of 6.7%. Recapping S&P lower, down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on a Tuesday afternoon. Let's head down to Washington now and check in with Tom Orlik. He is the chief economist for Bloomberg Economics. He joins us from our 99.1 studio there in the nation's capital. His piece today, I think, caught both of our attention. Carol Masser, the headline says it all. What's worse than a trade war? An actual war. Investors, economists starting to really circle up around this idea of what the economic implications could be if we are in for a sustained global conflict here. Tom, thank you so much for being with us. So how do you get your arms around something like this?
So I think the first thing to say, Jason, is that clearly this is a moment of risk, but it's also a moment of heightened uncertainty. It's possible we're going to get a significant retaliation from Iran, and that's going to escalate the situation. It's also possible that a weakened Iran, an isolated Iran, is just going to have to accept getting a bloody nose, a very bloody nose from the United States. And in a month's time, this is going to be old news and we're all going to be worried about something else. But for us, when we're thinking about the potential risks, really we're thinking about oil. And we're thinking about the way higher oil prices could start feeding through into weaker global growth at a moment where there's certainly some optimism. There seems to be a trade truce. Global central banks did a bunch of easing. Business surveys are looking more solid, but the global economy remains in a somewhat fragile state.
And what's interesting, what I love about this story, Tom, is that this isn't the global oil economy that we had maybe, a few decades ago or even 10 years ago. And part of that is because, of the U.S. production of energy assets. I mean, things have changed dramatically.
Yeah, that's completely right, Carol. If we go back to the 1970s, the 1980s, the global economy was running on oil, and the US, the mainstay, the main driver of global growth, was an oil importer. So at that point in time, spikes in oil prices were really extremely significant and extremely negative news for the US and also for global growth. And here we are in 2019, and the picture really looks very different. For a few reasons. The two which I would highlight are, firstly, the economy is just less energy intensive than it used to be. We think about the big companies out there right now, the Googles, Facebooks, Amazons of the world. These are not, by and large, energy intensive companies. And then the second very significant reason, which I think you highlighted yourself, Carol, is the US shale revolution.
Right.
And what that means, and we saw that this coming through in today's US trade data, is just that the US is much less dependent on oil imports. And so what that means when we run this through our model is, yes, a spike in oil prices would be a big negative for global growth. We think if oil prices went up to $100 a barrel, big jump from where we are now, but not impossible, that would shave perhaps 0.3% off of global GDP. But because of that reduced energy intensity, because of the US's reduced dependence on oil imports, the drag would be much less significant than it would be in the past.
And it's not just, of course, on the U.S., but as you remind us, is that with a much more resilient U.S. economy, it's a smaller blow to the rest of the world. I think that is also very key.
Yeah, I think that's right as well, Carol. And of course, when we think about the global picture, we also have to think about a lot of variation at the national level. We've got countries like India, countries like Turkey, countries like Korea, which are very significant oil importers. If we see prices spiking, these are the countries which are going to take a significant blow. At the same time, if the US remains resilient, if the US consumer remains in play as a significant driver of global growth, that's going to provide a buffer.
Well, and it is interesting to sort of go that level down and also to draw these parallels as you guys do in this piece, Tom, between sort of the trade war and the potential and the uncertainty around a hot war, as it were, however long that may last and however long the uncertainty may last, that there are economic ripple effects, essentially, that go beyond the oil market. And some of that goes to capital spending. And, we were talking about this in a more of an earnings-related conversation with Gina Martin-Adams. Is there modeling done on that yet, or how do you anticipate sort of those ripple effects?
I think that's a really interesting question, Jason. And the way I'd answer it is by drawing an analogy with the situation the global economy faced in 2019 when the trade war was very much the focus of attention. Now, in the trade war, the tariffs were a significant drag on growth. But an even bigger drag on growth came from the uncertainty.
Right.
And that's the capital spending decisions you mentioned. It's the hiring decisions. It's businesses saying, you know what? If the next day is going to bring a tweet which is going to break my supply chain or block my access to the Chinese market, then I'm not going to make that investment. I'm not going to hire that additional worker. And what our analysis suggests is actually the uncertainty was a bigger drag on global growth last year than the tariffs were. And I think now the concern is that we could be facing an analogous situation in 2020.
Right.
Maybe Iran doesn't retaliate, maybe nothing happens, but that geopolitical uncertainty is going to be there, and maybe that's going to be the drag on capital spending, the drag on hiring.
All right. Well, it's great analysis and obviously very timely. Tom Orlick, chief economist for Bloomberg Economics and one of the authors of really a must-read piece of research on the terminal, What's Worse Than a Trade War, an Actual War.
It's perspective, right? And maybe it explains certainly why we're seeing the market reaction that we're getting or lack thereof. So I think it's really important. Hey, coming up, some M&A news today. Accenture buying a division. We'll talk about that and what it means in terms of cybersecurity. Join our conversation, by the way. Tweet us at Carol Master and at Jason Kelly News. You are listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Worries about a possible escalation of tensions between the U.S. and Iran are keeping buyers on the sidelines and sending stocks lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 108, the S&P 500 down 7, the Nasdaq Composite is up 8. A new study of over 250,000 women found no strong evidence leaking baby powder with ovarian cancer. The findings will impact thousands of legal claims against Johnson & Johnson. Tesla has delivered its first Chinese-made cars to customers. Now CEO Elon Musk says he wants to set up a design center in China. Musk was in China for a ceremony in which a half-dozen Chinese customers drove away new Model 3 sedans. Creditors of Tough Mudder are attempting to push the organizer of extreme obstacle races into bankruptcy. They say the company owes them $855,000 and have filed an involuntary petition for Chapter 11 in Delaware. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Are you interested in a challenging...
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown. Again.
Search NFL today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So we've been talking a lot about security, both physical and cyber. A deal in that business between Accenture and Symantec. We're going to get the details coming up.
All right, first up, though, back to the world of business. And let's also see what's going on in the trading day. Let's turn things back over to Charlie Pellet.
And I thank you very much. We've got under 90 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell here. It is a mixed day, a mixed Tuesday with both the Dow and the S&P 500 index declining. NASDAQ trading higher. NASDAQ up now by 4 points. That's a gain of just under 0.1%. So stocks are falling as investors remain wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. S&P 500 index on track for its second drop in 3 sessions, with investors cautious after Iran threatened a military response to that American airstrike that killed a top general 4 days ago. Mithra Warrior is managing director at TD Securities.
A lot of our clients are saying, let's take a wait-and-see approach. The consumer is still strong, the U.S. economy is still strong, and we have an accommodative monetary policy globally, so they're not panicking yet, but they're waiting and seeing.
Right now, the S&P is down 8. That's a drop of 0.3%. The Dow down 109, lower by 0.4%. And NASDAQ, it is higher by 2 points. Again, little changed, up less than 0.1%. 10 years down 430 seconds, the yield 1.82%. Gold up 0.3%, $15.70 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 1%, $62.65 a barrel. Brent down 1%, $68.23. Recapping, stocks mixed. S&P down 8, down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Masser, here on Bloomberg Radio.
Speaking of security, we got some M&A news today in that world. The IT services company and consulting giant, we're talking about Accenture buying Symantec cybersecurity services business from Broadcom. Let's get more on the deal and also really the challenges in the growing business when it comes to cybersecurity. Kelly Bissell is global lead of security at Accenture, joining us on the phone from Washington, D.C. Kelly, nice to have you here with us. Tell us a little bit about this deal today.
Well, thanks for having me on the call. This is a great deal for our clients because it brings 2 really big global businesses, cybersecurity businesses together that have been in this market for a long time, together to offer services to clients that don't exist today.
And so tell us about what those services are, because it does feel like everybody knows, Kelly, these days that cyber is a threat. There are conferences on it. We host conferences on it and participate. But where does the rubber meet the road here, and what are people actually doing to combat this?
Yeah, that's right. All businesses are struggling to protect against these increased cyber attacks. And I think these days we're all aware of that. And really what clients need are the ability to protect against their whole business, from if you're a oil and gas company, from the refinery plant to the trading system to the plants that they have, all the way up to the gas pump. And that's what this acquisition for Accenture does. It brings our industry capability with their efficient platform.
Okay, so the kind of companies that are going to be tapping into this are who?
Yeah, there are all kinds of companies. There are governments around the world. There are banks, pharmaceutical companies, retailers. Really, those are our client mix all around the world.
And so, Kelly, help us understand the strategy here, because you guys have been pretty acquisitive across the board. Accenture has been. Is this something where the market's moving so fast that you need to sort of buy rather than build? Is there building going on as well? More acquisitions to come? I just asked you like 17 questions, but help us understand the strategy here.
Well, it's our strategy has always been looking at the unique offerings that we might find in the marketplace with boutiques or others that would add to our mix. But this was a very different acquisition. This one was a global cybersecurity managed function that was part of the Broadcom acquisition, as you know.
Right.
And when they bought it, it was part of their Broadcom strategy to retain that software business. And the services really didn't fit in their strategy, and I thought it was a great opportunity for Accenture to really add to our portfolio and serve clients in a better way.
I guess what I'm curious too is we talk a lot about cybersecurity, certainly here. As Jason mentioned, we even host programs here at Bloomberg. But what's interesting is I feel like there are a lot of smaller players. There are larger players like yourself. What are the schemes that hackers are moving increasingly towards? In other words, how are hackers operating? What are the methods that they're doing? I mean, obviously, you guys have to keep up to date with all of this. What kinds of threats are we increasingly seeing to customers?
Well, the threats are wide and varied. And I'll tell you that it used to be that companies would try to just secure their corporate office. But that's not where the risk is. That's not where the crown jewels are of the company. They're out in the operations. They're at the stores. They're in the plants, the manufacturing plants and so forth. And really what our clients need is security across their whole enterprise. And that is what this does for us.
And so, just going back to the M&A strategy briefly, Kelly, more deals to come in this area, or is this of enough size that you feel pretty content for the moment?
Well, this is, I think, the 10th acquisition that Accenture Security has done in the last 4 years. And I'm always on the lookout for the market for opportunities that would help serve our clients in a better way. And so we'll see what happens in the future.
And I do wonder, too, kind of what is the next level of cybersecurity? Kind of where do we need to focus our efforts going forward?
Well, that's right. So it's our plans. We've been working on this for about a year and a half to really transform the market of cybersecurity, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all, where the service provider serves a bank or a pharmaceutical company the exact same way. We don't think that works. And to really understand how a company works in the internal operations, we feel like that we've got to build cybersecurity through the lens of industry across the enterprise. And that is where we're going with this. And that is very different from the marketplace.
All right. Well, congratulations on the deal. Thanks for telling us a little bit about it. Kelly Bissell is global lead of the security practice at Accenture. He joined us on the phone from Washington, D.C. Always interesting to see deals get done, especially of scale. These two public companies.
Right.
And also always interesting to see, this was essentially, and I was glad to hear Kelly break this down, this notion that Broadcom buys Symantec, has to figure out kind of what businesses it wants to be in, what businesses it doesn't, and wants to get out of the service business. And Accenture essentially says, "Hey, we're in the service business."
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, we'll take that back.
Yeah, actually, we'll take that.
And a reminder that companies continue to do deals to kind of fine-tune their services and to be able to offer more services to their customers. Hey, coming up, I feel like it's where we kicked off our show a little bit, talking a bit about Fed policy and what's expected. We talked about this with Gina Martin Adams, not expecting any kind of lower rates. We'll see what what former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan had to tell our Tom Keene. So we're going to hear from him, Mr. Greenspan, in just a moment. Yes, we have.
All right, let's get to Bob Moon. Now he has got your world and national headlines. Hi, Bob.
Jason, as Iran vows revenge against the U.S. for the drone strike that killed one of its top military generals, the Trump administration insists it took the action based on very strong intelligence. So says National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien.
He was plotting to kill, to attack American facilities, and diplomats, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines were located at those facilities.
He didn't provide details, but said the U.S. will not tolerate Tehran's continuing threats. Moments later, Secretary Mike Pompeo told reporters at the State Department the U.S. has nothing to apologize for.
It's the right decision. We got it right.
A stampede broke out today at the funeral for that top Iranian general. Iranian news reports say at least 56 people were killed and more than 200 were injured as thousands thronged the procession. The Justice Department says President Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn deserves up to 6 months in prison. That's according to a court filing today. Flynn pleaded guilty in 2017 to lying to the FBI about his conversations with then Russian ambassador to the United States, including about his request that Russia not escalate tensions with the U.S. following sanctions imposed by the Obama administration for election interference. Jury selection is going forward in Harvey Weinstein's sexual assault trial in New York after a judge denied a defense request for a cooling-off period the morning after prosecutors in Los Angeles sought new charges against him. The 67-year-old disgraced movie titan shuffled into the courthouse today with a walker. Jury selection could take weeks. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel cross country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium,
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats.
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Along the goal line, scores and takes it home.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, they stop.
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. It is a mixed Tuesday with the Dow, the S&P lower. NASDAQ is advancing, looking at a 2-point gain right now for the NASDAQ Composite Index. S&P 500 Index also little change, down 8 points, a drop of just about 0.2%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbling now by 111 points, a drop there of 0.4%. So stocks are falling as investors remain wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. Crude oil, though, retreating down 1% today on West Texas Intermediate crude, lower now by 59 cents a barrel, 62.68. Brent is at 68.25. That's also a drop of 1%. Gold pushing higher, up again today, up by another 0.4%. Gold up 5.70 the ounce at 15.71, and the 10-year down 4.30 seconds, yield 1.82%. So again, recapping here, a mixed Tuesday. We've got the S&P 500 Index lower, little change, down now by 8 points. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly. Earlier, though, Bloomberg Surveillance's Tom Keene caught up with former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, and, of course, they talked about monetary policy.
The very definition of Fed speak is it shouldn't exist, period. It's a foreign language to everybody other than the Fed, and it's undecipherable language when it gets to Fed people. And it's, meant as a joke, but not wholly.
Mm-hmm.
if I look at the parameters that we deal with at Bloomberg every day, we have risk where we can establish probabilities, this wonderful thing, uncertainty. I think of the great Peter Bernstein here writing about this, or even Douglas North and this strange thing, ambiguity. With all of our communication and with all of our different voices, do we risk having almost too many messages and that versus a more cohesive message as we saw in your era?
No, not necessarily. I think the more that people talk about it and interact, the more likely you'll get a consensus in the political system. Our problems is not what to do. We know what to do. We do what the Swedes did. But if you take a look at what the various different things that they did to resolve their problems with exactly the same problem we have now, you would say, no way that goes on in the United States.
Can the United States of America be held equivalent to Sweden? Is there, with our diversity and with our scope and size of 4 time zones, how can we be equated with Sweden?
I grant there are major differences. The principles are the same. Defined benefit versus defined contribution. Those are accounting issues, and they stipulate basically that you can't spend, for defined contributions, you cannot spend more than you've brought in. If you could arrange to do that in the United States, that would do wonders to our current position, our $1 trillion deficit, as well as the future. I'm hesitant to believe that we're able to do that, and I'd like to see that we can do it, but until we do it, I'm concerned about the future.
Where's the inflation today?
Well, the problem basically is that is not the question. The question basically, what the forecasts of the monetary authorities are with respect to inflation, or with respect to economic growth, and any of the other things that are involved, is a secondary question. To be sure, a critical requirement of a governor of the Federal Reserve is to be a good economic forecaster. In fact, I remember back when I started at the Fed, I recognized that the only particular skill I could bring to the table was I had a real understanding of how the economy worked and how the data system worked. And I found that very useful in making my judgments, not the rest of the board, of how I thought the system ought to be moving.
And of course, that was former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan talking earlier on Bloomberg Television with our own Tom Keene, of course, of Bloomberg Surveillance. So interesting to get his perspective, talk about monetary policy, because we are certainly living in an interesting time when it comes to a very low rate environment for many nations.
And coming up shortly, we are going to bring you some playback of some comments that the President of the United States, meeting with the Prime Minister of Greece, made in the Oval Office. We'll bring you that when it is ready. In the meantime, just taking a look, and let's go to Washington now.
Questions are being asked in Washington and across America about what evidence you had that Qasem Soleimani was planning attacks against American targets. What can you tell us about what you knew prior to ordering the attack?
Well, number one, I knew the past. His past was horrible. He was a terrorist. He was so designated by President Obama, as you know, and he wasn't even supposed to be outside of his own country. He was, so right there. But that's, in a way, the least of it. We had an attack very recently that he was in charge of where we had people horribly wounded, 1 dead. In fact, the number now, as of this morning, I believe is 2 dead. And that was his. He was traveling with the head of Hezbollah. They weren't there to discuss a vacation. They weren't there to go to a nice resort someplace in Baghdad. They were there to discuss bad business. And we saved a lot of lives by terminating his life. A lot of lives are saved. They were planning something, and you're going to be hearing about it, or at least various people in Congress are going to be hearing about it tomorrow. Our Secretary of State covered it very well a little while ago. I saw his news conference, Mike. And if you want to mention a couple of things in addition to what I've just said, but we had tremendous information. We've been following him for a long time, and we followed his path for those 3 days, and they were not good stops. We didn't like where he was stopping. They were not good stops. We saved a lot of lives. Mike?
Not only we had deep intelligence indicating there was active plotting that put American lives at risk. And I'm confident, I think the president's confident too, that the actions that the president took saved American lives, saved lives of Iraqi Muslims as well. It was the right thing to do, and our Department of Defense did an excellent job executing the mission.
And as you know, he killed at least 608 Americans, but the number is much higher than that. He's also very much roadside bombs and all of the horrible explosives that you see. He was a big believer and sent them everywhere. He was somebody that we did ourselves, and we did a lot of countries a big favor. And I've been hearing from countries they were extremely happy with what we did. And if you look inside Iran itself, there were plenty of those leaders that were happy because they feared him and didn't like him in many cases.
Could you also clear up, Mr. President, whether Iranian cultural sites would be on any future target list?
Well, as I said yesterday, it was very interesting. They're allowed to kill our people. They're allowed to maim our people. They're allowed to blow up everything that we have, and there's nothing that stops them. And we are, according to various laws, supposed to be very careful with their cultural heritage. And you know what? If that's what the law is, I like to obey the law. But think of it. They kill our people. They blow up our people. And then we have to be very gentle with their cultural institutions. But I'm okay with it. It's okay with me. I will say this. If Iran does anything that they shouldn't be doing, they're going to be suffering the consequences, and very strongly. All right, Steve. Well, don't forget, in our case, it was retaliation because they were there first. They killed, and look, I don't have to talk about him for 18 to 20 years. He was a monster. But just in a very short period of time, 2 people dead, people badly injured, and then before that there were other attacks. And look at what he was planning. So that'll be discussed tomorrow morning. Right now it's classified, and that'll be discussed tomorrow with Mike Pompeo and the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Is the U.S. prepared for an Iranian attack?
We're prepared. We're totally prepared. And likewise, we're prepared to attack if we have to, as retribution.
Mr. President, if Iran's leader said that any response to the Soleimani killing would be, quote, proportionate, what would the United States do in the event of any Iranian response?
So, again, John, if you look at what's going on, ours was an attack based on what they did. We weren't the first one out. He killed an American. Now 2 people are dead from the same attack, and some people very badly wounded. And that was one of his smaller endeavors. You look over his past. His past, he's been called a monster, and he was a monster. And he's no longer a monster. He's dead. And that's a good thing for a lot of countries. And he was planning a very big attack and a very bad attack for us and other people. And we stopped him. And I don't think anybody can complain about it. I don't hear too many people, other than politicians, who are trying to win the presidency. Those are the ones that are complaining, but I don't hear anybody else complaining. Go ahead.
You called him a monster, but your friend Erdogan called him a martyr.
Well, that's everybody to each his own. I mean, I disagree 100%, and I'm sure he does too, but he has a public to take care of, and I guess that's for his own reason, but I'm actually surprised to hear that, but that's okay.
Are you willing to make a deal with Greece regarding F-35?
Say it?
Are you willing to make a deal with Greece regarding F-35?
So Greece and I and my people, and we have a whole group of people, and as you see, they brought a lot of great representatives from Greece that we've been dealing with. We have a tremendous Greek population, over 3 million people, as I understand it. That's fantastic. I really feel I know most of them. I think I know all of them, come to think of it. But it's a great population in the United States. We're going to be meeting. We're going to be talking, we're going to be negotiating, and we're going to be making a lot of deals. We have a really great relationship with Greece.
Let me add something to that. Greece is interested, Mr. President, in participating in the F-35 program. As you know, we are already upgrading our F-16s, and that program will be completed in 2023-2024. So we're very much interested in participating in the F-35 program after that. And I'm sure that the U.S. will take into consideration the fact that this country is coming out of an economic crisis in terms of structuring the program in the best possible way for my country.
That's true. And, they just signed a very big renovation of existing aircraft. They have great aircraft, but it's gotten a little bit tired. And they've done a renovation that's going to bring it up to brand new. And we look forward to doing that. A couple of our great companies are doing it. Yeah.
How do you feel about the idea of supposed withdrawal from Iraq possibility? Is that something Soleimani actually wanted all these years?
Well, it's something that I want too. I mean, eventually they have to be able to defend themselves and take care of themselves. And it's something ultimately that I want to see. We don't want to be there forever. We want to be able to get out. I didn't want to be there in the first place, to be honest, and everybody knows that. That was when I was a civilian, I said it. But we were there, and they made a decision, and I disagreed with that decision very strongly. But we're there now. We've done a great job. We've gotten rid of the caliphate. 100% of the caliphate is gone, and which is ISIS. We have thousands of ISIS prisoners that we're keeping right now under lock and key, and we want Europe to take many of these prisoners because they came from Germany, France, and other places. Probably a few from Greece, in all fairness.
None from Greece so far.
You're lucky. You're lucky. But we have a lot of people right now in prison, ISIS fighters that are tough fighters, and they are where they should be. So I think we've done a fantastic job. But eventually, we want to be able to let Iraq run its own affairs, and that's very important. So at some point, we want to get out. But this is in the right point. The other thing is, if we do get out, we've spent a tremendous amount of money on building airports and building, it's one of the largest embassies we have in the world, Mike. And we want to be reimbursed for the various costs that we have had, and they're very significant. But we'll work something out. And I talk sanctions, but I'm only talking sanctions if we're not treated with respect. We have to be treated with respect. We deserve, I'll tell you what, with what we did, excuse me, wait, 1 second. With what we did with ISIS, and this was done during my administration, because it was a mess before we got here. With what we did with ISIS, we've done the Middle East and we've done a lot of other countries a tremendous favor. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you agree with the Turkish provocations in Libya, in Eastern Mediterranean, against Greece? And are you willing to talk to your friend Erdogan?
We are talking to him, and we're talking to, when you're talking about Libya, we're discussing with President Erdogan. We're discussing with many other countries. I just spoke with the Chancellor of Germany, with Angela, and we talked about that subject specifically, Libya, what's going on. We'll be talking to Russia. They're involved. A lot of countries are involved with respect to Libya, and it's right now a mess. But there are a lot of countries, and they all want to know where we stand, and they do know where we stand. We have a very distinctive stand, and we have meetings set up, and we're going to see if we can work out some kind of a plan for peace.
I think it's important. Mr. President, can I just make one point on this issue? I think it is important to point out that the agreement signed between Turkey and Libya infringe upon Greece's sovereign rights and essentially cause great concern and instability in a region which is already highly problematic. So we'd be very much looking to your support to make sure that these types of provocative agreements are not being put into place. And I think we should refrain in general in the Eastern Mediterranean for any sort of activity that inflames passions and that doesn't, promote regional peace and security. So we'll be very much looking forward to your support on this issue, because it is a very important issue for my country.
Mr. President, if the Iraqi government says it expects U.S. forces to leave the country after the letter that it received, General Mark Milley said, by mistake yesterday, what do you say to the Iraqi government about the possibility of U.S. forces leaving based on that letter?
Well, I don't know anything about that letter. That letter was sent, and I understand it was an unsigned letter. So I could maybe let Mike speak to it. I don't know if that letter was a hoax or was it unsigned or what.
It wasn't intended.
But the Iraqi government is saying they're taking you at your word. They expect U.S. forces to leave.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the worst thing that can happen to Iraq. If we leave, that would mean that Iran would have a much bigger foothold, and the people of Iraq do not want to see Iran running the country. That I can tell you. So we'll see how it all works out. I know it's going to work out well for us because at some point we want to be able to get out. We want to bring our soldiers back home. I will say that we have had tremendous support from the people of Iraq, appreciating what we've done, and they don't want to see Iran go into Iraq. But they're neighbors, and over a period of years, something will happen. We'll see what that is. But what was said yesterday, I didn't know about. I really don't know about it. What is that, Mike? What exactly was that?
I just know that there was a draft letter that was
a draft unsigned
letter,
and the media knew that.
They don't like to say that. Yeah. The Iraqi people understand that we're there to help them stand up their sovereignty.
The Iraqi people were not happy when the suggestion was made yesterday that we were thinking about leaving at some point. They were not happy, but at some point we will want to leave.
Quick different comment.
No. Steve, go ahead. Steve?
For the Senate impeachment trial?
What?
Are you ready for the Senate trial?
Yeah, whatever it is, it's a hoax. The impeachment is a big hoax. It's become a laughing stock all over the world. There was nothing done wrong. The 2 articles that were sent are not even serious. And by the way, they're not a crime. The Republicans voted approximately 196 to nothing. This was not supposed to be partisan. It was never meant that way by, as they would say, the founders. It's turned out to be a totally partisan hoax, witch hunt. And frankly, it's been going on from before I came down the escalator with our great First Lady. I mean, this has gone on for 3 years and probably longer than that. And it'll be very interesting when the final tabulation is set and when the facts are released, because a lot of people are working on those facts right now. It's a big deal. It's in many ways the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on our country. It's one of the great hoaxes ever. It started with an illegal document that turned out to be false. The fake document that you know so well, the dossier as they call it. And it went on from there. It was set up by a bunch of dirty cops and others, working with the DNC, working with the Democrats. And from the day I ran, from the day I was elected, and probably before that substantially, not probably. If you look at the insurance policy was long before that. So that means before I ever got elected, they were working on something that's so illegal. So I assume that will be announced at some point into the future, and hopefully not too far into the future. And the impeachment story is, it's just a continuation of the same. It really is a shame that we can't focus on all of the things. You know, we talk today about Iran, we talk about Iraq, we talk about economic development. We have the greatest stock market we've ever had in the history of our country. We have the greatest economy that we've ever had in the history of our country. We're setting records, unemployment records, employment records also. We're going to have almost 160 million people working. And that we have to work on this partisan scam is really a shame. That we have to take time is a shame. All right, that's about it.
Mr. President, one more on a different topic.
And that was the President of the United States in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister of Greece. Let's see how his comments and other issues are affecting the markets. Charlie Pillett.
Hi, thank you very much. Here's what's going on. U.S. stocks, little changed while the president was speaking. Still a 6-point drop in the S&P 500 index, down 0.2%. The Dow lower by 94 points, down 0.3%. NASDAQ on the plus side right now, up by 5 points. That's a gain of 0.1%. Stocks lower as investors remain wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. The dollar advanced. Oil continues its retreat from multi-month highs. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.9%, 62.71 a barrel. Brent crude 68.28 a barrel of Brent, down 0.9%. Right now, gold up 0.3%, 15.71 the ounce, continuing its advance. The 10-year down 4.30 seconds. The yield now 1.82%. So equity markets lower. S&P down down 6, down 0.2%. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 88 points, lower by 0.3%. And NASDAQ higher by 7 points. That's a gain of 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly. So watching some of those big macro issues certainly out there and just hearing from the president. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about crises. And I feel like 2020 already turning out to be the year of crises. But this one's going to have to do with China and what it might be looking at.
A lot to get to today. And you're right, it's going to be a big year. Let's get to world and national news now. And Bob Moon.
Jason, thank you. President Trump doubled down today defending the U.S. airstrike that killed a top Iranian general. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office this afternoon, Trump said he ordered the strike based on strong intelligence.
He was planning a very big attack and a very bad attack for us and other people, and we stopped him. And I don't think anybody can complain about it. I don't hear too many people, other than politicians, who are trying to win the presidency. Those are the ones that are complaining, but I don't hear anybody else complaining.
Iran continues to vow revenge. The U.S. has warned ships across Middle East waterways that Iran might act against U.S. interests in the region. Here's the latest on impeachment game planning on Capitol Hill. The unmistakable message from Republicans is, let's get this over with. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he has secured enough Republican votes to start President Trump's impeachment trial and postpone a decision on witnesses and documents that Democrats want. The trial could start as soon as this week if House Speaker Nancy Pelosi releases the articles of impeachment. She is set to meet late today with her leadership team, and the Democratic Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, says he's content to wait.
The Speaker will make her own decision on this. I think we've seen over the last number of years that Speaker Pelosi is thoughtful.
There's been no indication Pelosi will release the impeachment articles anytime soon. The president, again today, labeled the impeachment proceedings a hoax. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
Event risk is taking center stage for traders.
Nathan Hager.
We get a policy decision from the Federal Reserve.
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
Are you interested?
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three, it's up and in!
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pelletta. Mixed day with the Dow. The S&P lower. NASDAQ is advancing. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks trading mixed right now. The Dow currently down 73 points. S&P's dropped 4, while the NASDAQ is higher by 13. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.82%. Gold is trading higher by 5. Oil is down, and small caps fall 5 points. Only 4 of the main 11 S&P sectors are trading higher, led by gains in materials, technology, and telecom. Real estate, consumer staples, and energy led to the downside. Nasdaq biotechs are a little changed. Transports rise 65. Semis jump 2%, and the VIX is down by 3%. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Boeing, Dow Inc., and Goldman Sachs, while Merck, Chevron, and Intel led to the downside. In other news regarding J&J, the talc powder link to ovarian cancer was questioned in a major study, and Tesla hit a new record high and trades around $471 a share. Wrapping things up, Boeing is backing a simulator training for 737 MAX pilots in a reversal. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, we thank you very much, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you very much, Charlie Pellet. Well, we want to get into our next story because it feels like 2020 already turning out to be the year of crises. And when it comes to China's next crisis, well, that might be brewing in Taiwan's upcoming election. So let's talk about this story in the magazine, in the upcoming edition of the magazine, out later on newsstands this week. And when it... Let's bring in Jillian Goodman, politics editor at Bloomberg Business Week, along with Joel Weber, Bloomberg Business Week editor, both in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio in New York. So, Jillian, set the scene, because I think we think of China and their crisis, we think of Hong Kong right now, but it sounds like there could be another area that it has to be concerned about.
Well, Taiwan has a presidential election coming up, what is it, Tuesday? It's January 11th, and especially with the tensions in Hong Kong, I mean, it certainly raised the stakes on, not a tense situation in Taiwan as well. Certainly, there are factions in Taiwan that would like to see more separation from Beijing, and there are other factions that would like to see the territory grow closer. And, in light of the tensions with Hong Kong, I mean, all of that is just really, escalated.
So how do you sort of frame a story like this in the magazine, Joel?
Yeah, first of all, January 11th is Saturday, not Tuesday. But so it is literally...
Sooner even than I thought.
Sooner than you think, always. And I think the thing that when we looked at this actually months ago, we said, look, actually, this Hong Kong thing's for real, but this Taiwanese thing actually might have an even greater impact because of Taiwanese sort of precarious place in the global world, and actually the global economy now in the trade war. And so we said, who are the players in this? And Matt Campbell, who's the lead writer on the story, dug into it with Debbie Wu in Taipei to sort of reveal that story to us. And it really centers on the incumbent, Tsai Ing-wen, who it was really interesting and has sort of been on our radar for a bit, in part because for equality reasons. Taiwan has been very progressive and sort of gay rights in the region. It's really the only place in Southeast Asia that has really legislated on that matter. Against Han Kyo-yu, who actually represents the KMT party, which historically has been the more sort of anti-China one historically, and yet has, amid the trade war, become almost the closer to the Chinese sort of almost having a relationship that's unprecedented in Taiwan's history.
And why do you think, Jillian, you work so much on all the political coverage. I mean, this is something that it feels like has gone relatively unnoticed globally, at least in a certain sector. Mm-hmm. Again, Hong Kong, maybe because of the violence and Hong Kong being a better known locality. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, Taiwan doesn't really have relations with anybody in the world, and it's because of this awkward status with regards to China. China still regards it as part of the mainland. Taiwan does not regard itself as part of the mainland, and any country that wants to do business with China needs to fall on the China side of that arrangement, which has made Taiwan very isolated economically, diplomatically. And so, yes, of course, Hong Kong has made a lot of noise in the last year that has not been reflected in Taiwan per se, but it's also just they don't talk to anybody, really.
There's so much history in this story in particular, but I do wonder about like the people of Taiwan. Where are they? Are we increasingly seeing pushback like we're seeing in Hong Kong when it comes to Chinese rule?
Well, that's what this election is ultimately going to be about. One of the pieces of artwork that accompanies this story actually shows an independence flag, which is basically something that wouldn't really have been probably as prominent as a matter if not for what's happened in Hong Kong, right? And just one thing that I also find interesting, just to give you a sense of just how isolated Taiwan is in the middle of this, is the U.S. you kind of think of as the main ally, right? But the U.S. doesn't even have an embassy in Taipei, right? Yeah. They actually have what's called the American Institute, which is sort of allows it to have an arm's length, and yet you can still get a visa there. There's still U.S. Marines there, but it really shows you that it operates in sort of this little gray area that, as they point out, amazingly kind of came to a head a couple years ago with Made in Taiwan as one of the pieces, that shows up on things that are manufactured there, and it couldn't actually be exported to China without it saying, China, made in Taiwan, China, right? So it really shows you why something that like an independence conversation could be so precarious. The Chinese side has indicated that what they would like is for it to be more like a Hong Kong arrangement, so that there's one system and two states effectively, right? So all of that will be basically decided probably with the election on Saturday.
I feel like it's tortured.
Yeah,
the relationship
for sure.
I mean, tortured would be one way to say it, I think, right? And so this gets to your question of how the people actually feel about it. And so far, the incumbent has a pretty generous lead. So far, it seems like the status quo will probably remain.
Yeah.
He did get a boost from Hong Kong from post.
That's right. So we've got a boost from Hong Kong. Okay. Like that was talk about tailwind.
Well, a lot in this story. A must read.
And another Matt Campbell story. That guy's the hardest working man in Hollywood. Absolutely. Joel Weber, Jillian Goodman, thank you both so much. Coming up, we're going to get the chart of the day as well as a check on how hedge funds did last year. Headline, mixed.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll dig into the particulars. That's coming up next on Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Masser along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks remain lower in the final hour, though the market is improving a bit. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 88, the S&P 500 down 5, the Nasdaq Composite is up 7. Boeing is reversing a long-standing position and recommending that pilots receive flight simulator training before they fly the 737 MAX. It had said computer training was enough. The change is intended to reassure the public that the plane is safe. Delta Airlines wants to turn its mobile app into a digital concierge to tie customers more closely to the airline for their travel needs. An improved app will allow travelers to arrange airport transportation, stay on top of weather and traffic, and more. Uber is offering riders a 4-digit PIN code to help ensure they're getting into the right car. It follows the death last March of a 21-year-old woman who got into the car of a man impersonating an Uber driver. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Are you interested?
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. In New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
And coming up, we're going to get Dave Wilson's chart of the day. Also, a peek into the world of hedge funds. How did they do last year? Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get a rundown from our own Hema Parmar. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let's get back to your top business stories and an update on the trading day. We've got 29 minutes to go, Charlie Pellet.
29 minutes to go indeed. Carol Masser, and stocks continue to trade mixed. That has been the story for most of the day. Right now, the Dow and the S&P 500 index, they are both lower. The Dow, on the other hand, it is moving higher. I'm sorry, NASDAQ is moving higher. NASDAQ up 11 points now. That is a gain there of just about 0.1%. But as I mentioned, the Dow down 76, a drop there of 0.3%. S&P lower by 5. That is a drop of just about 0.2%. 10-year down 5/30 seconds, yield now 1.82%. So U.S. equities falling as investors remain wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. S&P heading for its second drop in 3 sessions, with investors cautious after Iran threatened a military response to that American airstrike last week that killed a top general. Bob Dahl is chief equity strategist at Nuveen Asset Management.
We had Friday big down. We cut the losses in half. Yesterday we opened down a bunch, closed up on the day. The markets are shrugging and moving on, perhaps saying that this isn't going to be a horrific event like a lot of people are talking about. I'm not sure it's that simple. I think this is going to linger for quite some time.
S&P 500 index down 4, a drop of 0.1%. FireEye shares jumping, with the stock spiking to a nearly 11-month high after SunTrust Robinson Humphreys suggested the cybersecurity company could be an indirect beneficiary of geopolitical tensions in Iran and Iraq. FireEye up now by 3.6%. Franklin Resources is buying Athena Capital Advisors, a wealth advisory firm with $6 billion in assets. Recapping stocks lower. S&P down 4, a drop of 0.1%. Gold up 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
I do know it's time for the chart of the day. Dave Wilson, what's the song and what's the chart?
It's called Everybody's Happy Nowadays by the Buzzcocks.
We would have never guessed it.
New wave band from the late 70s and the 80s and beyond. In any case, if you're a U.S. stock investor, you got to be pretty happy. Just consider, S&P 500 up 29% last year. And if you add in dividends to that, and reinvested dividends to be more precise, you end up with a total return of 31.5%. Now, that's a pretty eye-popping number, but it's certainly not unprecedented over the decades. The folks at LPL Financial went back and found 12 other instances in which the S&P 500 delivered total returns of 30% or more annually. And then they asked the question, well, what happened the next year? I mean, because let's face it, the concern now is, stocks maybe headed down given the strength of their performance. Well, that's where you have the potential for more happy returns because on average, you've had an annual gain of 15% in those years, going back to 1950. And we're talking about 12 instances, and only 2 of them did stocks fall on a total return basis. We're talking 1981 and 1990. What do they have in common? At mid-year, recessions began. So you figure if the U.S. economy can avoid contracting, you may very well be set up, at least based on history, for further gains in U.S. stocks this year. I mean, that's certainly LPL's contention. And if you want to see what they're talking about based on Bloomberg data, well, then you can send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Let's get into the business of hedge funds now. Hema Parmar with us, hedge fund reporter on our investing team here in New York City. So what do we know so far? Because some big names have come out with some pretty good numbers.
Right. So if we start with Brevin Howard, they're a macro fund. They have had a tumultuous few years for them, but they're up 8.4% in 2019, which is good news for it. That builds on its 2018, up 12%, which is, again, quite good for them. They had lost money in 2017 and had its worst performance on record then. So what we've seen last year is that they actually are seeing inflows. So this is a hedge fund that at one point had $40 billion. That's since fallen to 6 last year, or just before last year.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, what we saw was about $1 billion kind of flow in, and now they run about $7 billion. That's a combination of inflows and performance.
It's interesting because I do feel like we're walking a little bit on eggshells. Like we're like, all right, guys, you did okay. But I think it's fascinating that we just came off of Dave Wilson's chart that talked about the S&P 500.
Right.
And I know hedge funds are protecting you on the downside, and maybe you don't make as much potentially on the upside, but still definitely lagging if you just threw money in an index fund.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. You're seeing, very few funds are posting the kind of numbers that you're seeing in the S&P. We have seen a couple funds do very well. Soroban and Glenview, both up. One is up 45, Glenview's up 51 in its opportunity fund. So some really killer returns from some big managers like that.
I just saw a story too that, I don't know, is this Andrew Left, Citron Capital, that famed short seller, that he saw 43% returns, I think, in his first year.
On the short side too.
Yeah,
which is
pretty amazing. I mean, given a year like we had in 2019, where, as you say, the S&P was up so much. Ray Dalio, it sounds like, not having a great year at all. The first loss for his major fund since 2000.
Since 2000, down about 0.5%. But yes, first loss since 2000, which is, it's been kind of not impressive the past year or so anyway. But yeah, first loss, actual loss, it's significant.
And so what's the mood in hedge fund land? I mean, you talk to these guys all the time. You read their letters. You talk to their investors.
It's like Disneyland.
Yeah, sometimes, depending. You've watched Billions.
Exactly.
So what are they talking about?
On the investor side or on
the manager side? What are they saying?
I mean, I think there is this perception that, hedge funds have been getting a bit of an unfair rap because, to your point, should they be compared to the S&P? That said, on the investor side, a lot of people are saying, well, I could put my money in a hedge fund or in the S&P, so that is a fair comparison.
Yeah.
But and I think it's
or private equity,
or
where
private equity,
a lot of money is going right now.
A lot of money is going there. So it's also manager dependent.
Yeah.
Broadly across hedge funds as a whole, through November of last year, the average fund up about 6, while the S&P up like 27. But you do see outliers. Some funds doing very well, some funds doing quite poorly. I think Horseman Capital had a down fund that was down 35%.
Right.
And again, short sellers also, had a really difficult go.
Emma Parmar, thank you so much. I want to bring you a headline crossing right now via Reuters. Impossible Foods says it won't seek the McDonald's deal, basically to sell through McDonald's. That's a really interesting headline. We're going to dig into more of that as we go on, because obviously McDonald's has been seen as the holy grail for the faux meat wars in many ways. Beyond Meat, we know, did a test, I believe, in Canada. So more to come on that. First, Bob Moon, let's get some world and national headlines.
Jason, Iraq's outgoing prime minister said today, U.S. troops must leave his country. President Trump says he knows better what the Iraqi people want.
Well, I think it's the worst thing that can happen to Iraq. If we leave, that would mean that Iran would have a much bigger foothold, and the people of Iraq do not want to see Iran running the country. That I can tell you.
Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden said today President Trump's escalation of tensions with Iran proves him to be dangerously incompetent and puts the U.S. on the brink of war. Speaking in New York, Biden said Trump used a haphazard decision-making process to order the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and has failed to communicate the rationale to Congress or U.S. allies around the world. Biden said Trump instead offered tweets, threats, and tantrums that prove the Republican president to be dangerously incompetent and incapable of world leadership. A stampede broke out today at the funeral for that top Iranian general slain in the U.S. airstrike, and at least 56 people were killed. More than 200 were injured as thousands thronged the procession, that according to Iranian news reports. As the crowds mourned Revolutionary Guard Qasem Soleimani, more angry calls rose from Iran to avenge his death, drastically raising tensions in the Middle East. The U.S. continues to reinforce its own positions in the region and is warning of an unspecified threat to shipping in the region. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
In-depth analysis.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sail.
That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff. You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel cross country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
At Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. With the Dow, the S&P, they are both lower right now. We've got NASDAQ continuing to advance. NASDAQ is up right now by 7 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a gain there of just about 0.1%. S&P lower by 0.2%, down 5 points. The Dow has dropped 87 points for the Dow Jones. Jones Industrial Average. That's a decline right now of 0.3%. 10-year down 4/32 yield there, 1.82%. And we have got gold pushing higher up 0.3%, $15.71 the ounce. Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate down 1.1%. A barrel of Brent also down 1.1%. More details to tell you about the Impossible Foods story and McDonald's. A Reuters report says Impossible Foods is no longer trying to win a deal to supply McDonald's with plant-based burgers. Citing an interview with its CEO, Pat Brown, the company says it just can't produce enough of its imitation meat to partner with the world's #1 fast food chain. McDonald's shares higher, little changed, up now by just about 0.1%. Recapping, U.S. equities lower, 12 minutes to go ahead of the close, with the S&P 500 index down 6, down 0.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
And it's time for the Drive to the Close. Jim Russell with us, Principal and Portfolio Manager for Ball & Gainer, looking after more than $36 billion for clients. Joining us on the phone from Cincinnati. Happy New Year, Jim.
Happy New Year to you, Jason.
All right, so how happy is it for investors, at least in the short term, geopolitics really raising its head here? Market feels okay with that for the moment, but what do you make of it?
It's a great question. We do think that the market was maybe poised for a pause right here at the first few trading days of 2020. We had over a 9% increase in the fourth quarter with a fair amount of momentum over the last 2 months of the year. We thought that perhaps some consolidation, some weakness for a few weeks was probably in the cards. Certainly we did not foresee military action in the Middle East. I think that gives investors an excuse to perhaps pull back just a little bit. We did think the sentiment as we hit 12/31/19 was beginning to be a little bit too frothy, and we're almost glad to see just a little bit of a pullback. We think it's the pause that refreshes.
Okay, so we're just talking about levels here, right? And valuation. Right. So we just you're saying fundamentals still look good for 2020?
I think they look reasonably good. I think they look good enough. Carol, I think that, frankly, 92% of last year's S&P 500 ascent was due to PE expansion. Only 8% was due to earnings gains. And so we really saw a major revaluation of stocks last year with the Fed acting 3 times, with inflation being low, with interest rates being well behaved. So we do think that earnings are going to come back into the picture this year. We can see a scenario this year that PEs either maintain kind of this 19 times trailing, 18 times forward types of level, or contract just a little bit. We are looking for modest gains. We're not looking for anything gangbusters in 2020.
And so where do you look to put money from a sector perspective here, Jim, in this type of market that's a little bit uncertain, but not a defensive market, it sounds like?
Right. We are equity income growth investors, and so we do seek rising dividend streams in the companies that we position our investors in. We do feel that the financials have a very good profile in terms of income growth. As many of the larger cap banks are overcapitalized, we think many of the industrial names are also perhaps well positioned in a weaker macro environment that we see. So selectivity is absolutely key with the markets, again, being at these high PE levels. So it is a little bit of a stock picker's market. I think broad themes and broad sector positioning is going to be difficult to come by because we do think that even within a sector, there will be a fair amount of disparity between winners and losers.
Where don't you want to be in 2020?
That's a great question, too, Carol. That's probably as important, if not more important, the question. We can see a scenario this year that inflation rises just a little bit, especially if oil stays, let's just say, at an elevated level. Wages are on the move just a little bit. I think the Fed wants to see a higher inflation rate. So we think interest rates perhaps start to move a little bit higher here. We think the bond proxies of the utilities, broadly speaking, the REITs, broadly speaking, selected staples companies, broadly speaking, with the high yields attached to them, where people were hiding from geopolitical, mainly domestic uncertainty last year, other, China trade uncertainty, etc. We think those will be the places that perhaps move a little bit lower this year as investors seek things other than yield. And in a higher interest rate environment, bond proxies simply do not trade well.
And as you think about geopolitics, as you mentioned, this was not necessarily the threat that most people were thinking about. Are there other things in the world you worry about?
There's always a number of things to worry about. I think earnings growth will be, again, modest, call it 5%, 6%, 7%. What if the China deal becomes unwound, or we find ourselves perhaps in either a political, economic, or geopolitical situation with China? I think you cannot overlook North Korea. I don't think that you can overlook borderline recessionary conditions in Europe. Certainly, the impeachment and 2020 election looms large in terms of event risk this year. So I think there's a number of things, maybe not quite as dramatic as the wall of worry as we were to sit here on the 7th of January of 2018. Maybe not that dramatic, but there are always things to be concerned with. And there's always unknowns. There will be new things that we're not even aware of that will surface as market issues as we roll through 2020. So we do think it's a little bit more of a defensive market, and we think that income from the equity markets will matter in terms of figuring in the total return.
Hey, Jim, just got about a minute left here. Speaking of income and income inequalities in particular, right, which has been certainly a big topic of the last couple of years, and rightfully so, when you look at, the top few percent getting wealthier, and then many Americans still struggling despite labor statistics that talk about a tight labor market. You work with, high net worth individuals, and I'm just curious, what they feel is, their responsibility to making things perhaps more equal around the world. Just got about 40 seconds here.
Yeah, Carol, those are just great questions as a human being. And I would tell you that many of our clients are concerned about some of those trends that you'd mentioned and articulated so clearly. Tax reform, certainly greater charitable donations, other social causes. Many of our clients are deeply ingrained emotionally and financially in trying to help right that ship. So I would say that people are not just standing by, but being active in the political process, as well as donating and volunteering as needs arise here in the Cincinnati area, and I think more generally.
All right, we're going to leave there. Jim Russell, Principal Portfolio Manager, Ball & Gainer. Thank you so much. He joined us on the phone from Cincinnati. Coming up, we're going to close the net market here.
We are. Just you and I. We're going to close the market.
Just all by ourselves.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Day.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today. Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel cross country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Heading for the end. Scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. To move lower for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. NASDAQ had spent much of the day higher. In the end, though, a close of 4 points, or move lower at the close of 4 points. Folks from Blue Rock Residential Growth ringing that closing bell. S&P down 9, a drop of 0.3%. The Dow tumbled 120 points for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That was a drop of 0.5%. Stocks fell as investors remained wary of an escalation in tensions with Iran. S&P had its second drop in 3 sessions, with investors cautious after Iran threatened a military response for a U.S. airstrike that killed a top general 4 days ago. Jim Russell is portfolio manager at Ball & Gaynor. He was our guest moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week, and he called today's pullback, quote, the pause that refreshes.
We do think that the market was maybe poised for a pause right here the first few trading days of 2020. We had over 9% increase in the fourth quarter with a fair amount of momentum over the last 2 months of the year. We thought that perhaps some consolidation, some weakness for a few weeks was probably in the cards.
Semiconductor companies jumped today, with the group having its best session in weeks, as commentary out of CES, the old Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, was seen as adding to the industry's recent upward momentum. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index did advance today by 1.8%. Pier 1 import shares plunged today, lower by just about 7% today. Pier 1 shares dropping a day after the home furnishings retailer reported more falling sales, along with plans to trim staff and close hundreds of stores. So gold up today, gold advancing 0.4%, $15.71 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 1%, $62.61 a barrel. Recapping the Dow, the S&P and NASDAQ all lower, late wave of selling. S&P down 9, down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me. I got a few moves I know you'll like. Shake it, oh, come on, shake him, not stir. Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shake it all over.
Bloomberg Business Week. Movers Movers and Shakers with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it's time to take a look at some of the stocks on the move in the Tuesday trade. Carol Masser along with Jason Kelly in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Let's do big picture, if we may. S&P 500, 197 names higher today, 303 lower, 5 unchanged. And what's interesting is some of the names that I was watching included the result of an analyst call. PayPal Holdings was among them. This stock was bouncing around a little bit. We did see it rally up about 1.25%, but it ended the day down about 0.5%. You did have PayPal and Square, though, gaining earlier today after separate analysts boosted their ratings on the stock. One saying Square has a favorable setup as sentiment on the company is mixed at the moment and it can beat expectations. That's from B of A. So anyway, what was the other one? Square. Let me just quick look up Square, if I may, and just take a look and see how Square ended on the day. Forgive me, my finger's a little bit slow. Square actually held on to its rally, up 3.25%.
Your number one gainer, Apache. Did you see that? Discovering oil. It's like a little Beverly Hillbillies thing.
I did see that.
Yeah, that stock was up 27%. And obviously, especially given what's going on in the world, an oil discovery is probably that much more important to people. Also, taking a look at Beyond Meat, the reaction to that stock, which already has just been such a juggernaut. That stock finishing up 12.5% after its chief rival is like, we out when it comes to the McDonald's contract. We caught up with Ethan Brown. So there are two Browns. There's Pat Brown over at Impossible Foods. There's Ethan Brown, who runs Beyond Meat. Ethan Brown was telling us about the so far successful pilot program that they have going in Canada with McDonald's. So you do wonder if this paves the way, but it does raise the question, and we were talking about this a little bit off air, this notion of what is if what is ultimately holding Impossible back is the volume that they would need to produce for McDonald's, can Beyond Meat create that?
Right. And what is it that may be holding them back and maybe not some others? So like you do wonder about that a little bit, because I would think that there's a lot of investors ready to kind of provide some funds for expansion, but who knows? So there's more to be told on this story. I do want to get to the number 3 decliner in the S&P 500. Ticker is STZ. We're talking about Constellation Brands. It was down about 3.5% here by the close. Keep in mind they report earnings tomorrow morning, but there was some Nielsen point of sales data that showed slowing growth trends in the company's beer and spirit segments. So some concerns about that specifically, which explains why you saw that stock under some pressure. Let me just take a look at the last 12 months on that name. It's up about 18%. Roughly in the last year or so, but we'll get further clarity on what's going on with the business come Wednesday when they report earnings.
Tesla up another pretty much 4% today, so giving Elon Musk a lot to dance about. He was dancing in China. I have
to say, I was like mesmerized by the video. I know this is radio, but if you I put it out on Twitter. I think I retweeted something. It was kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, little awkward dance there, but he does have a lot to celebrate. Not just the stock price, which is now closed at $469. It was as high as $471 at one point, but well past that 420, that famous 420 that got him into so much trouble when he said he was taking a private funding secured. We'll see where that story continues to go from here, but Tesla certainly ambitious right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think this is going to be a big year for them. I'm just laughing. I'm just seeing where you're going. Hey, let's get to the volatility index report. The VIX, which also bounced around just like the equity markets. It was up 4% at one point, but by the closing bell today, the VIX was down just a hair, down about 0.3%. You are listening to Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson!
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson back with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. What are you watching stock-wise?
I'm watching Nexstar Media, Jason. It's a company that owns about 200 U.S. television stations. Among them are affiliates of the four largest broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And the company expanded last year through a $6 billion purchase of Tribune Media. Nexstar was founded in 1996 and went public in 2003. The ticker is NXST. Now, the shares have risen in 10 of the last 11 years, with 2014 is the only exception. They've soared more than 240-fold along the way. Analysts have generally been positive on Nexstar. Data compiled by Bloomberg shows there have been no sell ratings on the stock for more than a year. And at one point, there were no hold ratings either. And that was before Wells Fargo started coverage with the equivalent of a hold in September. Today, Wells Fargo raised Nexstar to the equivalent of buy. The firm said the company stands to benefit more than its peers from demand for advertising in this year's presidential elections. Nexstar shares rose to a record in response to that call. They closed with a gain of 6.3%, the biggest since December 2018.
Big move up, no doubt about it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I should point out, among other things, Wells Fargo talking about billionaire candidates as a potential source of demand. And we know a billionaire candidate. That would be Michael Bloomberg, the founder of Bloomberg LP and the parent company of Bloomberg Radio.
This name was up 49% last year, like as you said. I mean, It's really been on such a tear. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much.
We'll catch up with you tomorrow for your market insights, your chart and stock of the day. Coming up, we're going to check in with the CEO of Tivity Health. You may know them a little bit more for their Nutrisystem program. He's going to talk to us a lot about sort of the health trends broadly that he's seeing, especially as it relates to older Americans, partnership with Walmart, a lot of interesting things going on there. This is a mega trend that you and I are both very interested in.
Yeah, I feel like we're seeing more and more of this, so I'm curious to see their perspective and how they see it. So really a timely guest. We're looking forward to talking with him. All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's get a check on world and national news headlines. Over to Bob Moon we go. Hey, Bob.
Carol, President Trump and his top advisors are under pressure to disclose more detail about the intelligence that led him to order the killing of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, which has greatly heightened tension with Tehran. Trump insisted today his decision was based on what he called tremendous information.
We saved a lot of lives by terminating his life. A lot of lives are saved. They were planning something, and you're going to be hearing about it, or at least various people in Congress are going to be hearing about it tomorrow.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said it was clear Soleimani was continuing his efforts to build a network of activities that were going to lead potentially to the death of many more Americans. A human stampede killed 56 people at the funeral for that Iranian general today. Iranian media reports say 200 more were injured. He says he now has the votes to set the terms of President Trump's impeachment trial without the cooperation of Democrats. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell's revelation to reporters today sets him up to reject Democratic calls for an agreement on new witness testimony before the trial gets underway.
We'll get around to the discussion of witnesses. We got around to the discussion of witnesses after we got through phase 1 20 years ago.
What was good for then President Bill Clinton's impeachment trial should be good enough, Mitchell says, for President Trump's trial. McConnell is expected to launch the third impeachment trial in the nation's history as soon as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi sends the articles of impeachment to the Senate. She is set to meet late today with her leadership team on her next move. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Financial leaders enjoy talking with Tom Keene and Jonathan Ferrum.
What was it like having the giant darken the door every once in a while?
Experts appreciate it when what they have to say is understood.
Do you think that we might have seen a cyclical peak in the labour market?
It's the same reason we're recommending Bloomberg Surveillance to you.
Everything you thought would happen is happening.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging...
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown. touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. A move lower for the Dow, the S&P, and